The first experiments we did were with financial bonuses. But what about other forces? For example, social recognition. We did a task of anagrams. We asked people to solve some anagrams, and we paid them by their success. And people were scattered around the room, and every person had their little cubicle, and they were solving anagrams for pay. But from time to time, we asked somebody to get up, come to the board in front of everybody, and solve the anagram in front of everybody. They still got paid in the same way, but now they solved it in front of everybody. Now, would this be more important to people or less important to people? It's more important, because you take the financial motivation to solve anagram, plus you add to it the social desire to have your friends think you're a smart person and to avoid looking foolish. But what actually happened to performance? Performance was about half as high in the public condition than in the private condition. When people wanted the most to perform well, they actually worked the hardest. And this is, of course, things like test anxiety and so on. When we want to perform to the best of our ability, it doesn't mean that we can. It means we want to, but this wanting to can actually overwhelm our ability. So what do we have? When we think about the relationship between incentive and performance, we usually think about just an increasing amount. Sometimes we think about diminishing returns. Very rarely do we think that performance would go up and then reverse and go down, but so far when we've tried things, this is what we see. I should point out that somebody did an analysis of how people play golf when they play next to Tiger Woods. This was in the period before he had all these affairs, that he was the top player in the world. And what do you think would happen to somebody who's playing next to him? Would Tiger Woods push them to be better or stress them to perform worse? Well, the results show that he stresses them to perform worse. By the way, from this perspective, it is also interesting to speculate about Tiger Woods. He was a guy who was the most important, I guess, successful golf player ever. And he was at the height of his career. All of a sudden, he found out that he has some affairs and his performance drops down. How can it be, right? I mean, could it be that he couldn't concentrate, that he couldn't think very much, that his mind was preoccupied, right? I mean, that's one interpretation, but it tells you how easy it is to get people to be distracted and might think about some other things, not performing very well. One of my friends had a different theory. He said that maybe what he was doing is he basically had no release for his sexual energy, so it was all pent up and he couldn't perform very well. And I don't know how to differentiate between these two theories. So now let's go back to Wall Street executives. I meet these Wall Street executives and they say, oh, your results are very, very nice, but they don't apply to us, to the Wall Street executives. Why? Because your experiment, dear Dan, are carried on regular, normal people. Students, people in India and so on. We are super special people. If you had a distribution of people, we would be at the edge. Regular people would get stressed by $1,000, $2,000, $50 million. We don't worry about this. In fact, there's not an amount of money in the world that would get us to go off the continuous improvement, and you can pay us as much as you want, and we would always improve in quality and never deteriorate. Now, of course, what I do when they say something like this is to invite them to the lab. And I say, you know what? Maybe you're right. Why don't you come to the lab and let's test things out? And if you'll give me a research budget, we can see whether you indeed don't get stressed with these large amounts of money. But none of them is truly that interested in doing it, and nobody has ever appeared in the lab. But nevertheless, it was an important point. I don't believe that. I don't believe that all the stress-free people are going to Wall Street and these are not normal people and so on, but maybe. Now, testing people in Wall Street is very tough. So instead what we did was we went to look at professional basketball players. And together with Coach K, the head of the university basketball team, we got his help to contact professional coaches of teams at the NBA, the National League for Basketball. And we asked them to tell us who are the clutch players in the league. Clutch players are the people who kind of get the ball in the last second and shoot the ball, and everybody thinks that they are doing a fantastic job under stress. And what was interesting is that all these coaches basically agreed very well about who were the clutch players. They named 17 people, and the agreement was virtually 100% about who those 17 people are. And then we went back and we looked at the whole season of basketball games. And we looked at what was the performance of these clutch players. So we looked at how many points these clutch players got in the last 5 minutes of the game versus the last 5 minutes of the first half. 2 5-minute periods. One is crucial, one less important. And then we also looked at the regular team members. So what do you think happened? Did the clutch players have more points in the last 5 minutes of the game compared to the last 5 minutes of the first half? The answer is yes. And did their team members get more points in the last 5 minutes compared to the last 5 minutes of the first half? No. So the first look, it seems like regular people, non-clutch players, have a flat effect from the 5 minutes at the end of the first half to the last, and clutch players have an improvement. But there are two ways you could get more points. You can get the ball passed to you more, you can try more often, but just do the same, or you can actually improve your percentage average. Which one do you think they did? Did they just try more frequently, or did they just improve their point average, or a little bit of both? Well, it's just that they tried more frequently. There was no higher success in terms of percentage. Other people seem to think that they're a clutch player. They pass them the ball. They think that they're a clutch player. They try more frequently. Success is just the same. Now, these are good players. They're fantastic players, but they don't have this improvement when you look at percentage score. By the way, when we ask coaches, coaches believe that they actually have an improvement in percentage, not just in absolute numbers. So what happens is we have a team, and we all think that I'm the clutch player. So therefore, you pass me the ball, I take more shots, everybody is happy. There's a self-fulfilling prophecy in which I act on our belief, but I actually don't get any better. Now you could argue against it, and you could say, you know what? These clutch players are really getting better, but what happened is the defense also knows about it. So now if I'm the clutch player, everybody passes to me, the defense knows about it, and they're going to protect me to a higher degree. So the fact I don't succeed more is not because I didn't get better, it's because the defense was ready for it and they got better. So we looked at that as well. We looked at free throws. And now there's no role for defense. You're just standing there, and would you do more? So what happened? In the last 5 minutes, do clutch players get more points? Absolutely. Do they get better percentage? Not at all. They get the ball passed, they try more frequently, they get fouled more frequently, they go to the line more often, they take more shots, but do they do any better? Only in an absolute way, not in the percentage.